whatever. But also there's the delivery. And, I don't know if you noticed, but the way I deliver the gambit right here is a very straightforward way of talking, just as normal conversation. And also, I think
I noticed, yeah.
Yeah, and that is good because, you still convey those powerful things, but you're talking normally. So it becomes more acceptable for her on a social level to listen to you and accept your frame. So you're not doing anything fancy, hypnotic. There is a niche for that, and there are situations where that can be useful. But in like 80% or 85% of the situation, talking normally, like any other conversation, is actually the most beneficial because it becomes less weird to her, right? Also, you may notice that I don't sound scripted, and that's important because then it feels natural to her. It feels like a natural conversation. So that kind of sometimes add a bit of imperfections when I deliver it. And that is very easy to teach students, to add imperfections because that means they just have to focus less when you deliver them, make it more natural. Because if it sounds too scripted, she'll be like, oh, did you read that in the book? That's very important. And also, I work a lot on delivery, pace, and more importantly, and this is something students struggle a lot with, is the transitions. How do I get to talk about sex? And I teach them multiple techniques. There is, for example, conversational bridging, which is, gradually switching to the conversation. There are assumptions, how to escalate with assumptions and up to sexual subject. There is, of course, how's it called again? Using proxies, basically, as I did. I talked with a friend the other day, or I went to the dentist and I read in this magazine about this subject, whatever. That's a proxy. So, I teach them those things because most guys actually struggle with how to get into the sexual conversation. So I spend a lot of time on that, if it's needed, of course.
Okay. I also want to talk about hooking. So hooking is a huge bugbear for a lot of guys in our community. So guys get really frustrated approaching girls and opening them and having those girls not hook. So the hook, of course, is just when the girl gets sucked into the conversation and now she doesn't want to end, as opposed to when she could take it or leave it, she doesn't really care. So you have two totally separate angles that you use to hook with. These can be used jointly or separately. It depends on the situation. The first one is called BSL. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So the BSL stands for bait, stimulation, and locking in. And I try to make it as simple as possible because, when you approach a girl and you try to hook, things are a bit stressful, right? She's a stranger, things are shaky, you're not settled into the conversation yet. Your brain power is all focused on the fear and the excitement. So I want to make it easy. And the BSL is basically bait her in, just as, with a clickbait, as I mentioned earlier. And that can be anything from, who you look like, who? Gunwitch, thank you for that one, by the way. Or do you know what? I actually read something really fascinating. Did you know actually that most gay people actually always have this situation where there's one bottom and one top, but that is related to just their actual interaction with whoever they are. You know that? And she's like, what? Yeah, really? Actually, that's total bullshit. I just made that up right now. But, that subject that can be intriguing, or even a bait like, hey, I have a question for you, by the way. I wonder about something. If I consider myself a female and I want to have sex with a girl, does that make me a lesbian? And she's like, what? So that there you actually have a bait and stimulation because it's stimulating. So the bait is basically something that catches her attention and makes her invest into the conversation. Like the one I just used, she will have an opinion about that. No, you're not a girl. No, well, clearly not. And she will say something about it. So she's baited in. Now, stimulation is basically saying something that stimulates her, that makes her feel excited about talking with you. And baiting and stimulation can happen at the same time. It's not like a process start with bait and then, go to stimulation. It can be one and the same, but it can also be linear in the sense that you start with the bait and then, go with stimulation. That's up to you and whatever you use as material. And then whenever you get stimulated with a girl or the girls, you will reach what we call a high note, basically a burst of good emotions. And this is a good timing to escalate the interaction. And the way you do that is to lock in. Now, locking in is basically changing the whole scenario, position you in a way that makes them feel that you are part of their group or that you know them. Because by positioning yourself in a way that looks like you know them, makes them backward rationalize that they actually know you. And then you have rapport established right away and the hook becomes solidified. Such an easy technique that's underrated. For instance, one way to do that is you're having a conversation, you stimulate them, they start laughing, they have this good emotion, and you're like, hey, by the way, could we just move over there for a second? There's a bit of a wind here. It's going to be less wind over there. Let's go there. Bam. And then when you walk over to that place with them, not only did you do a change of location, which can establish rapport in itself, but as you change location, that gives you an excuse or a way to reposition yourself in a way that is more, makes it look like you know them, like positioning yourself between the girls or leaning into the wall while they're facing outside, and all that stuff. And it's so easy to do, and so few guys does it. And actually, when I talk with my students, I always tell them, did you lock in? And they will say, no. Well, that's why you didn't get the proper hook. Lock in, lock in, lock in. And then they lock in, and they will realize that most of their good hooks is where they either locked in by themselves deliberately, or where the lock-in happened naturally for whatever reason. So that's why it's such an important thing. And I have many locking in techniques, and most of them are very easy to pull off. The difficult part with locking in is to remember to do it.
Yeah. And we've talked about it before, and you said to me that you regard locking in as a very underrated technique, and I very much agree. And it's one of those things beginners don't do, intermediates don't do, guys just forget to do it. And I wonder if you'd tell me why you think that is. And you already talked a little bit about how you get students to start doing it, but why do you think guys are so negligent a lot of the time of locking in?
I actually have no idea. Perhaps, in my opinion, it took me actually a while to discover this technique. Well, I did read about it in my earlier days, but I rediscovered it much later, because when I read about it, I was like, yeah, just move her a few meters away. Okay, that's not juicy. That doesn't sound fancy, right? It's not exciting. It's not like this magical one-liner or something like that you want to learn when you're a beginner. So you kind of neglect it because it doesn't sound fancy. But sometimes non-fancy techniques are the most powerful ones. It's just like hitting the right timings. Doesn't sound too fancy, but fancy users use it, right? They hit the right timings. So I think it's just because it doesn't sound too fancy, and people don't talk about it because it just doesn't sound too good. But it's really powerful.
Yeah. Now, right now, you're opening up 3 spots in your coaching roster, which you don't usually do. Usually, you only take on 1 student at a time due to your workload. So you're looking for specific types of students, however. So first off, can you tell me what sort of students you are unable to work with?
So it's not like I'm unable to work with them. It's more like I feel that they're not the kind of students who will benefit the most out of my program. Sure, I'm totally able to teach beginners, and I have done so occasionally. I had one not long ago. But what I realize is that I'm one of the few guys who's been around for 16 years, right? And I have this advanced knowledge. So I feel that the people who will get the most out of my coaching will be intermediate and advanced guys who just want to reach the next level. Because most coaches, they've been around for 5 years and they're totally able to teach those beginner guys, right? I feel like, but however, a guy who's been there 5 years in, he can't teach a guy who's been there for 3 years in, or who's approximately equally good as him. So they need a guy who's been there for a long, long time. And that's why I feel that the beginner is not, if you look at the benefits the student will get, the beginners are not really those who get the most benefit. Those who will get the most benefit is the more experienced guys. And also, I feel like most beginners, they will need more of a coach who's more of a therapist in a way, who will, take care of their limiting beliefs, motivate them, and sometimes, deal with them having a bit of, not mental issues, but, sadness and depression a little bit. Many beginners face that, right? They have been rejected so much, they feel bad about themselves. I need a bit of motivation, and that's totally fine. But I feel like it's not really what I'm specialized in. I'm more of a consultant in a way. I'm the guy who wants to look at their game and find tweaks and how to better it and how to adjust so that they can get the maximum results. And it's going to be a bit weird if I'm start talking about meat to lay ratio with a guy who is too afraid to an approach, right? So, that's why the beginners won't be, fit for this type of coaching. And I feel also that most, in this industry, we focus on the majority, right? So we focus on those beginner guys. There's a lot of products for them, a lot of coaching programs for them. But yet we need to remember there's a lot of guys who's been into this for a bit longer, who are intermediate or even advanced. And there's so little products and so little programs for them. And I want to be there to offer them something as well, so that they can actually start feeling excited about, learning from someone and get coaching and take their game to the whole next level.
So how would you describe your ideal student? the guy who's going to get the most out of training with you?
I do want my coaching to be fun, but we're going to do some serious work. So he needs to be dedicated, and he needs to know that, we may have a good time and fun, but ultimately I want him to feel that after the session, his brain's going to be fried. And I want him to go out there. That's why I do 2-hour session, but we'll get to that later. But I want to really punch the knowledge in and really, basically look at everything. And I want him to be fascinated by this thing because I want him to put in the work because I like them. I love results and I love to see my students get results. And there won't be any results if they don't put in the work. That's the fact. If they have to go out, they have to read, they have to do the homework, they will get stuff to read after the sessions, they will have to spend time to read stuff and to ask questions, over email between the sessions, and go out there and put the material in, write down notes after their outings and break down their game, because that's the only way that they can reach the next level, of course, with my help. And so the ideal student is the guy who's dedicated and who's passionate about this, because we're going to talk about a lot of advanced stuff, and we're going to go really into details to tweak even the most important but small bits of seduction of their game. We're going to tweak them, adjust them. They're small parts, but they have a big impact on the overall picture. And we're going to go really deep about it. So they have to be dedicated because it's going to be, it's going to be kind of a university level of seduction anyway. We really want to get deep into this. So I need a guy who's dedicated and who also is totally comfortable to go out there and talk to girls and have an interaction. And especially an interaction that's not just opening and get rejected. They have to have a prolonged interaction because we need to look at their game as a whole, right? So we need to look at their hook game, their opening game, their setting frames, their frame control, their escalation, their delivery, the way they stimulate, all that stuff. We need to look at everything. So they have to be able to have a bit, long interaction with girls. But that's the best way I can look at everything and come with solutions or find ways to better the things they already do right.
All right. Now, I want to talk about the price, but first I want to talk about a unique value that you've been offering to students that you just mentioned a moment ago. So I don't know if this is sustainable, and I think as you take more students, you might want to cut back. But at least right now, for these next 3 students, you are offering not 12 one-hour sessions, which is what all the other coaches on Girls Chase offer, but 12 2-hour sessions. So guys are getting double the amount of time with you. This is super generous. You usually prefer to do one session every 2 weeks to give students time to implement what you discuss, but you can also do them once a week or once every 3 weeks, depends on the guy. So I'm of the mind that your rates should be in the same neighborhood as Hector's. Hector is currently charging $4,000 for a 12-hour package. So if your rates were the same as his, you'd be charging $8,000 for this package, which for the value of what guys are getting here, training on exceptionally powerful seduction methods from the best technical seducer in the world, is a steal. And if we keep taking students for you, it'll probably go up there eventually. However, right now, you're offering this entire huge package at a screaming discount of just $34.97. So it's actually less than what guys pay to book our most prolific coach and for double the coaching. So that's a deal if I ever heard one. Now, could you give me a recap of everything guys get when they're coaching with you?
So I can't recap everything because there's a lot, but I'll mention the most important things.
Sure.
So, the first goal of the package is to increase the students' meet to lay ratio, basically tweak every small aspect of their game to increase their success, while also being efficient. We want to be efficient, right? I want every student to be able to be more selective, right? Get the girls they actually desire, and make more girls out of the approaches they make so that they spend less time with useless interactions. So it all revolves around that. A student who coaches with me gets one of the very few experts who has been into this literally forever. I mean, most guys are into this for 4 or 5 years and then they start teaching. I've been into this for approximately 16 years. So it's been 16 years of experience. I've literally seen it all. And, I got a lot of stories to share as well, but, I've seen it all. And that's something especially intermediate guys benefit from, because there's always those weird experiences they will have that maybe needs, comment from someone who's been around for a while. When you take this package with me, you also learn how to execute my 2 strategies to hooking girls. We mentioned one here, but you also get the other one, which is equally powerful in some, or even more powerful in certain contexts. So, of course, we'll discuss this BSL strategy. that we mentioned today. We'll get more into locking in and all that good stuff. You'll get to hook girls. You'll perfectionize this part. And of course, as you mentioned, there were all these rules about sex talk. There were 7. You're gonna get to know them in details and how to implement them. And of course, more on how to deliver, sex talk properly and all that stuff. You also get my most potent sexual pricing gambits. You'll get at least 6, but probably more, depending. We'll find some that suits your style, right? The student style, they're all different. So find something that works for them that they can pull off and be comfortable with. And also I want the student to discover, that they're easy to make work. And once they get the tonality and the delivery down and they know the mechanism and how to pull them off and when to pull them off. And we'll also talk about all my methods, including how to calibrate yourself perfectly to women, how to set the proper social frame, which we didn't discuss today, but which is a whole different subject about also making the woman feel comfortable about hooking up with you, that she feels that you are a guy who's suitable to have sex with on a social level. Have you ever had this girl who tells you, you're not my type? Well, this time, she will tell you that you're not her type after she had sex with you. And that's the whole goal with social frame. So, you'll learn about that. So you make them feel allowed, you'll make them feel desire towards you, and this combo will be powerful. It will be the weapon of mass seduction. And of course, we'll talk about how to approach girls, talk about the opening, how to increase the chance of hooking and not getting rejected. And we'll also, because, I'm a risk-averse guy. I don't like rejections. I don't see a point in going through that pain, so we'll learn how to deal with them when they occur, but also, more importantly, how to avoid them in the first place. So it'll be 12 2-hour sessions, just because I'm a talkative guy. And we're going to spend a lot of time and go into depth about things. And I really want to spend 2 hours because that really allows the student to get immersed, get into the mojo of, getting coaching. Get this really into it and this focus. That's why I like to do 2 hours. And of course, when you are having a session with me, I expect the student to be totally devoted, and I will be equally devoted, and making sure that the student gets unparalleled improvement in their meet-to-lay ratio and their overall success with women. And to do that, it takes time and it takes practice, but you'll get there, and they will get there, and it will be a good ride. Because if you remember, as I said earlier, I regret not enjoying the time where I didn't get to enjoy the learning process. So we're going to enjoy this process, and it's going to be fun. And it'll be even more fun when we hear about the results and that they get to enjoy those amazing women.
Incredible. Well, I know any student who signs up to coach with you is going to be getting an absolutely life-changing experience. There's only one Alec Rolstad. There's nobody else out there teaching what you teach, and it is unique, exceptionally powerful girl-getting methodology few men will ever master. Aside from you, a couple of your close friends and wingmen you've taught to, and your students. So if you want to train with Alec, sign up using the form below. A Girls Chase rep will give you a call within 24 to 48 hours to answer any questions you've got and make sure that you'll be a fit for Alec and Alec will be a fit for you. The first call's free and you're under no obligation, so if you're sick of grinding it out and not getting the meet-to-lay ratios you wish you could be getting with girls, or you even think you might want to coach with him, throw your hat in the ring because there's only 3 spots. Well, Alec, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, as always. Incredible material here, incredible stuff, and one heck of a deal for students to sign up for. And I'd have to say, once you start working with more students, you're probably not going to be willing to sell your time this cheap for long. So guys, get in on this now if you don't want to be paying double or more 4 or 5 months down the road to coach with Alec. For now, I'm your host, Chase Amante. It's been fun talking with you. I hope you've got some great new tips and mindsets from this interview with Alec Rolstad. And if you're qualified, I hope you don't miss this chance and sign up to put your meet-to-lay ratio on rocket fuel with an absolute seduction legend.
Well, I just gotta say, even if you're in doubt about whether or not you're fit or not, just give a call and we'll figure it out. Again, there's no obligation. We'll figure it out, and maybe you are suited for it, and that will take your results to a whole new next level. But I warn you all, once you're into it, and you get the results, and you get to enjoy the lifestyle, there is no turning back, and you will not want to turn back because it's going to be a whole new experience and a whole new way of living life, and you're going to end up becoming passionate about this field because I want to share this passion with you. So all I gotta say is see you on the other side. Thank you, and it was a pleasure talking to you, Chase, like always.
Great talking as always, Alec.
I'm looking forward to talk with those guys, and I'll see you then.
Fantastic.